Experience the life-changing benefits of automated insulin delivery with the T-Slim X2 insulin pump from Tandem Diabetes Care. Snack while you meal prep, doze off on the couch, wear it fashionably or discreetly. You can do it all with the #1 rated automated insulin delivery system according to a DQ&A patient panel. Get started at tandemdiabetes.com. RX only, indicated for patients with type 1 diabetes 6 years and older. Warning, Control-IQ technology should not be used by people under age 6 or who use less than 10 units of insulin per day or who weigh less than 55 pounds. Safety info available at tandemdiabetes.com/safety-info.
Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
And now, all the way from the other side of the pond, it's the Tea Party Power Hour with Mark Gillar.
Welcome to the Tea Party Power Hour. My name is Mark Gillar. I'll be your host as we speak to Mr. Brandon Vallorani. He is the author of a brand new book called The 1896 Prophecies by himself and his co-author, Liz Martin. Brandon is a very, very successful business person. He's involved with Patriot Depot, Patriot Gear, MAGA Fun, and one that's new to me, Vallorani Cigars. He's not new to being an author as well. He is the author of The Wolves and the Mandolin, Let's Go Brandon, and he's the co-author of Would Jesus Vote for Trump? I think he would. And again, he's here to talk to us today about his brand new book, The 1896 Prophecies. Brandon, welcome to the Tea Party Power Hour.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
It is an honor to have you on the show, sir. I've been aware of you for quite some time. This book is a very interesting book. And just to kind of lay it out for the listener, this book was originally released in 1896 by Ingersoll Lockwood, and at that time was entitled 1900 or the Last President. And this was Ingersoll Lockwood's work of fiction that predicted what would happen if William Jennings Bryan, a Democrat, won the 1900 election. Now, as you know, as our listeners know, the election was actually won by William McKinley. But one of the things that's so striking about this book, Brandon, is that as Ingersoll Lockwood lays out these predictions, these prophecies of what would happen, it sounds a whole lot like what's going on now. So when did you make the discovery that Ingersoll Lockwood was perhaps prescient and that there were some things in this book that would be of value to the modern day reader?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, my co-author and we were talking about, I believe there was a book called The Trump Prophecies that was out there for some time that seemed to predict, President Trump coming on the scene. And that led us into kind of a deeper dive of what was out there in older literature. And one of the interesting things we found is that Ingersoll Lockwood wrote a 5-volume set on a protagonist called Baron Trump.
Yes.
So that's not part of this book, but I thought it was I'm thinking, okay, I'm scratching my head going, I don't think that, he's necessarily inspired by God to predict the future, but this book is 10 chapters of allegory, and you've set it up perfectly as to, what would happen if the Democrat won. And I don't know if you knew this before, maybe from reading the book, but William Jennings Bryan was quite the popular character. He was a great orator. He was also representing the side of creation at the Scopes monkey trial in Dayton, Tennessee.
I saw that in the book, but I did not know that before.
So that's how I knew William Jennings Bryan. I've known that name for as long as I have sort of an interest in the creation evolution debate. So I knew his name from that, totally different topic. It wasn't even political. So when I learned that he was, pretty hard left guy, I thought that was a little bit incompatible with the view that he was defending at that trial. But he was also an upstanding, leader in the church, popular guy in the day. But yeah, his policies, I think it was the Cross of Gold speech and galvanizing the left in his day towards this idea of free silver.
Yes.
And that seems to be like the crux of his campaign and the book. In other words, he was advocating that, the common man could melt down their silver jewelry and mint their own coins at some kind of a ratio of 16 to 1 silver to gold. which was supposed to help people because they had just gone through another depression.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was supposedly going to, his idea was let's just print more money, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
And help the farmers get out of bankruptcy, help people that are laden with debt. So again, it's a typical socialist line of not capitalism, not hard work, not ingenuity, but let's give a handout. And of course, that was one of the main causes of the fallout that ensued in this 10-chapter book.
Now, as we all know, William Jennings Bryan did not win that election. As historians look back, Brandon, at the election, how much credit do they give the book 1900 or The Last President for altering the outcome of that election?
Yeah, that is a great question. I'm not sure I could give you an accurate answer on it, but I can tell you this much. I remember Rush Limbaugh saying that Americans are hardwired for liberty, that even the leftists among us still have this sort of in our DNA, that we don't want to hand over our freedom. It's a hard-fought battle. So I basically trust the American people. And 100 years ago, they were a lot more conservative. So I think that's what saved the day. I think Bryan was just too radical.
Right. Yeah. And of course, now I don't know if you can be too radical when I look at some of the stuff that the left is proposing. A point in the book that I think is worth focusing on here is the left, according to the book, and I think you and Liz did a great job of pointing this out, never present a pro versus con analysis compared to competing ideas. They insist on dividing the world between the oppressors and the victims. Could you discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the book definitely addresses that as well. It's the irony of it is that they create a victim class, and that victim class could be racial, could be economic, and now we're looking at it even being illegal immigrants. And so they create a class, and in their attempt to create a protected class, use that class as a pawn for their own political power, and those people end up ultimately getting screwed. Whereas the conservative Republican capitalist view, if you will, would be those that people are best served by giving them an equal opportunity to succeed. So we don't give people handouts. We create a level playing field. But yeah, that's been the Democratic model from the beginning of time. They're basically trying to buy voters to put them in power. And you'd mentioned, what did this book maybe help McKinley win? Well, maybe, but I'm hoping that this revised or updated and expanded version of the book would help modern day voters not allow a similar situation to happen in 2024. And that was our hope in writing the book.
Gotcha. And let's hope it does help move the country in that direction, because I got to tell you, Brandon, I don't think many of us can take 4 more years of this nonsense. I mean, this is absolutely crazy.
I have a lot of hope still in the American system and the American voters that it's not that we're going to get a change of leadership here next year.
I really, really hope so. This is kind of off the book, but I'll just ask you, with all the different charges that Trump is facing, do you think he's actually going to be able to continue running for 2024? I
do. He's resilient. They call him the Teflon Don.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that he probably will. And I almost can't even imagine if he's not, what would the landscape look like? He's so far out in front right now. I've been involved in fundraising, and President Trump is still outraising all the competition. So he has really strong support. So yeah, I think he'll make it. I do. I think he'll be the nominee, unless something. I'm definitely not a political expert, so I could be wrong.
Well, I would disagree with you on that. I think you've certainly been around long enough, and you've written enough books, and you're respected within the conservative community. So we value your opinion, even if you're going to be modest and say you're not a political expert. But thank you for that. So how can I put this? You mentioned in the book, and I thought this was a great analogy, that in a way, elections are sort of safety valves. But in order for them to function in that way, those elections have to be trusted. So talk to me about that. Do we really have those safety valves anymore, especially with what happened in 2020?
Boy, that is a really good question. So in some states and in some districts, I would say no. There's, the continual debate in Maricopa County that never seems to be resolved, for example.
Right.
I lived in Georgia for many years. There's some very suspect things that were happening there. The question is, Was it enough to tip the scales, in 2020? I don't know for sure. But I think overall there is a distrust amongst conservatives about the way our votes are counted. I mean, I talk to people and everybody says, they really believe President Trump won. They don't see how it was possible that he didn't. That's the consensus. I run these online stores and I talk to the customers, and I've got a little bit of the pulse of where most mainstream conservatives are. So now, what do I believe? I still have trust in the system. I really do. There are some areas that are suspect, but the system works. And what's really important is that we maintain the Electoral College. What I've noticed in the book was that they wanted to do away with the Electoral College and go to a populist vote. So this is the real danger to me, is if we allow the populist voting system to override the Electoral College.
Well, at that point, it becomes mob rule, and we're going to let a handful of heavily populated wacko left-wing cities run America if we get into that area. And I think it would change campaigning in the way that there would only be a handful of states where candidates would feel the need to campaign. I mean, in the system we have now, that Rhode Island population might make a difference to you in the grand scheme of things. But if it was if it was a populist vote, that wouldn't be the case. Well, you said you had trust in the American people. You have faith in the system. How do you see this working itself out? Now, I mentioned this the other day on the show. Sarah Palin, and it might have been a bit irresponsible, but she said that because of the persecution of Donald Trump with all these sham prosecutions, that she thought America could be headed toward a civil war. I guess you could argue we're in kind of a silent civil war now. But do you see things ever really getting that bad? I personally don't see Americans shooting other Americans, but what are your thoughts?
Boy, that would be like a worst case scenario for sure. That if it really turned into that, and the difficulty with even something like that happening is we're not even really geographically, we're all intermingled. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've got left and right living in the same cities, and so what would that even look like if it were, as it were, over 100 years ago, where you had North versus the South? Maybe it could happen. What I'm concerned about is conservatives still have a sense of decorum. They still want to do things the right way. They still have moral boundaries and lines they wouldn't cross. And the left, on the other hand, really believes the ends justifies the means. And so it would be an unfair, it's already unfair. I think probably it would be a slow, like the frog boiled in water. I think that's what we're dealing with. That's what's going to, if the left wins, it's only because conservatives have just gotten tired and given up, rather than there being some kind of a civil war.
Right.
But it feels like a civil war at times, with the media and
Well, shopping for a car?
Yep, Carvana made financing a car as smooth as can be.
Oh, yeah?
I got pre-qualified instantly and had real terms personalized just for me.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
Well, I got to browse thousands of car options on Carvana, all within my budget.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
It does. I actually wanted a car that seemed out of my range, but I was able to add a cosigner and found my dream car.
It doesn't get much...
Oh, it gets smoother. It's getting delivered tomorrow.
Visit Carvana.com or download the app to get pre-qualified today.
Can you have zero interest in something and still really want it? Your wallet would say yes. And with Simply Zero from South Carolina Federal Credit Union, you can transfer credit card balances and get 0% intro APR for 12 months. That's right, no interest all year. So you pay less and keep more. To learn more, visit scfederal.org/simplyzero. That's scfederal.org/simplyzero. Variable APR ranges from 11.74% to 17.99% thereafter. Limited time offer. Restrictions apply.
You're listening to Mark Goulart. He explained the way things really are.
Well, I had a guy on the show the other day. His name was Mark Huffman. He wrote a book called Everything is Ice Cream, the story of a curious old man and his tongue. And it's about Biden. And he was about to launch this thing before Christmas, and he gets a call from his publicist saying that all the books had disappeared from the warehouse. Now, could be a coincidence, could be some kind of an error, but the idea that somebody's releasing a book in time for Christmas that bashes Biden, lampoons Biden, and that all of a sudden, right before the release date, the books all disappear. All of them, every single one of the first runs. And
Do you remember who the publisher was?
I don't know how to tell you this, but it's a branch of the same one you're using.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
And I know the owner of the company is a really great guy.
I don't think for 1 minute the people that own the company are involved in this. I think it was probably an employee somewhere who may have done something, or maybe it just got genuinely lost. You know, we're also paranoid these days. Who knows? But if that thing was deliberately sabotaged that way, it just speaks to how low people will go. And I'm totally shocked that something like that could happen. And then you look at, I remember some football player came out and said he supported Trump. The next day he got a call from his bank. We don't want your business anymore.
Unbelievable.
You know, so there are all, you know, people are being attacked. It's not enough. People can no longer agree to disagree agreeably. We can't just say, you know, I think you're wrong about abortion and here's why. Now, if you don't agree with the left, they want to come after you. They want to take money out of your pocket and food out of your mouth and your family's mouth if you don't agree with them. And again, this could all just be a coincidence. You know, the story about the guy, again, the book was called Everything's Ice Cream. It's actually got some really nasty pictures of Biden licking things. But anyway.
Oh, no.
But anyway, and we're here to focus on your book, not on that one. But I'm just making your point about it feels like we're in a civil war now. And that's the way it feels. I mean, it just feels like everybody's afraid to speak out. When I would have people come up to me back in 2016 and say, I'm voting for Trump.
Yeah.
And I'd say, why are you whispering? I don't want anyone else to know. And I'm like,
right.
Oh, okay.
Silent majority.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you. One, I don't think we're headed toward a civil war. I don't think Americans have the stomach for it. I mean, you're going to have guys in trenches going, oh man, I'm missing Masked Singer. You know, I mean, we just aren't as tough as we were back then. And then on top of that, America, like you said, we're too intermingled. I mean, every year, you know, or, well, not now because everybody's afraid, but you know, I used to put up my Republican sign. My neighbor would put out his Democrat sign.
Mm-hmm.
The homeowners association would have to tell both of us to take them down in March. And, but you know, they can't bomb his house without bombing mine or vice versa. So,
right. I don't know how you'd even do it, but there is one way you could do it. And you triggered my memory on this. It's economic terrorism. Your story of the football player came out in support of Trump. What we noticed after 2016 in my businesses was that big tech, and they even admitted it. You know, there's organizations out there that say the way to take down conservative news is to basically pull their advertising.
Right.
So they will. That is a form of warfare. It's economic. They're very sophisticated. So they will work to defund conservative organizations.
And then we've got all the ESG and DEI stuff going on. You know, you can't get capital these days unless you're willing to put up those ESG scores and diversity, equity, inclusion. And I think what someone had said, I can't remember who said it, but in the early days of this, it was kind of a no-brainer for CEOs to just say, yeah, okay, I'll do whatever you want, because the right wouldn't get mad enough to do anything to hurt them. Now, with Bud Light and Target, maybe we're starting to see that there is a price for going along with this ESG and DEI stuff. Now, one of the things you pointed out in the book, you and Liz pointed out in the book, is that Joe Biden has been up at the podium and said he doesn't know what Republicans are for. He doesn't understand what Republicans are for. Well, I think you guys did a great job in Chapter 9 of talking about what Republicans are for. Would you share a little of that with my listeners?
Absolutely. And I alluded to it just a little bit earlier. We are ultimately for creating and sustaining an environment for opportunity. It doesn't matter what you believe, the color of your skin, where you come from, that you should have a chance to achieve the American dream. And I think Republicans get so caught up defending themselves against false democratic attacks that they're always in a defensive posture. I've always lamented the fact that we could be better at pushing our platform in a way that captured the hearts and minds of minorities and groups of people that normally vote Democrat. Mm-hmm. But I think it's starting to change. I think President Trump was one of the guys that finally came out and just didn't sound like the traditional Republican with these kind of high pious ideals that nobody really related to. He's like a street fighter. He talked to people where they were. And that's why he got a huge percentage of the minority vote. But yeah, I think we're making traction. I always felt like Democrats are better marketers than Republicans. And I always wanted to play a part in the work that we did in our consulting roles with conservatives and also with the conservative merchandise that we produce and doing a better job marketing our platform. But freedom, ultimately it's freedom. People don't really understand that freedom doesn't mean security. And the Democrats conflate the two. Oh, we'll take care of you, therefore you'll be free. No, if you get taken care of, you've handed over your freedom.
That's exactly right. But what I'm starting to see is that it seems like there's a pretty big section of America that is willing to trade freedom for security. I just read that Harris County is looking at doing a guaranteed monthly income of $500 or something. And I just picked that up yesterday. I'm in Bryan, Texas, which is right next to College Station and Texas A&M. So I'm about 100 miles away from Harris County. And I read that and I just thought, oh, wow. Shades of California. Are you kidding me? And the thing is about Harris County is that it received a flood, no pun intended, of New Orleans residents back during Hurricane Katrina. And so with that flood of immigrants from New Orleans, if we can call them that, without offending anybody, came a whole ton of Democrat voters. So we're watching Harris County become more and more liberal, although I am happy to say they just rejected Sheila Jackson Lee in a huge way when she ran for mayor. But at any rate, yeah, that's scary stuff. People, I'll take a check from the government and they can tell me what kind of car to drive and where to put my thermostat and, whether or not I can have a tree in my front yard and all that stuff. People are willing to go along with that for the security that you spoke of. I want to talk about some of your businesses here. You also have the iPatriot newsletter, correct?
I do.
Okay, talk about that. I just read that this morning. Tell the listeners how they can subscribe to iPatriot.
Sure. Just visit iPatriot.com. So think of iPhone, right? iPatriot, iPatriot.com. And we have one of our writers there also happens to write for Breitbart. So Warner Todd Houston is our main writer. He's on a brief break at the moment, but he generally puts close to five articles a day on the site, hard hitting, very relevant material. And you can subscribe right there on the website.
Okay. And of course, you also have Patriot Depot, Patriot Gear, MAGA Fun, and one that I had not heard of, Vallorani Cigars. Hey, I tell you what, I'll give you an idea for free since you mainly market to conservatives. Come out with a line of cigars honoring Monica Lewinsky. You could just call it the Lewinsky. I think that would be great after what happened back during the Bill Clinton days.
That is genius. I might have to pay you a royalty if I roll that out. So.
Absolutely. And then for the marketing idea, you can just hire that Dos Equis guy, the first Dos Equis guy, and each Lewinsky has an aroma uniquely its own. I'm telling you, this thing has an idea. I almost did that at that time. I was just thinking, man, somebody needs to have a Lewinsky cigar to honor Bill Clinton. And what's really interesting is that while she was performing her little cigar act for him, on one occasion, he was running late for a meeting with Yasser Arafat. Yasser was out in the waiting room going, I can't imagine what's taking Bill so long, And meanwhile, he's in there getting some kind of a cigar show from Monica Lewinsky. So I think if you want to have a little fun with it, maybe you could even get her to be a spokesperson for it. That would be hilarious. But the other thing is, of course, you came here today to talk to us about the 1896 Prophecies, 10 predictions of America's last days. And as I said before, this guy is either prescient or maybe the more things change, the more they stay the same. But there were times, and this isn't a criticism, this is a confirmation of the book. There are times when I would forget which part of the book I was in. Was I in Ingersoll Lockwood's part, or was I in the part written by you and Liz Martin? Because again, it's just uncanny how similar things were that he wrote about in this book. So
the parallels are frightening.
They are. Now, I assume this is available wherever good books are sold.
It is. You can get a copy at PatriotDepot.com.
Okay, let's do that.
Amazon. Yeah, I would say go to patriotdepot.com. That would be great.
I would too.
And yeah, thank you very much. Now, if you want to get it, drop shipped by a drone in 3 hours, go to Amazon. But we are definitely a small family business, and so it'll take us a few extra days in Amazon, but it would help our company, so we appreciate it.
What a great gift to usher in the election year with. I mean, I think give it to a friend who's on the fence as far as how they're going to vote in 2024. We're just a few days away from Christmas, but it's still a great gift. Order it now and give it to someone shortly after Christmas. Give it to someone and say, hey, this is an election year. Read this book. So all I can say, Brandon, is it's been an absolute pleasure to interview you. Please tell Liz that we thought very much of the work that you guys did in this book. You've got plenty to talk about. I mean, you've got so much going on. You're always putting out a book. Come back and see us sometime.
I would love to do that, Mark. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Tea Party Power Hour with Mark Gillar.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses, so don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.